We are here with Erica Hopman, and you are a running coach.
I am.
And you are from Dunnville, and this is the first time we've met, and I really do appreciate you coming in here. You've got a busy schedule, as you were just telling me, and this is awesome. I believe we first connected on, I call it Strava. Do you call it Strava?
Strava. It's definitely Strava, not Strava.
Yeah,
I've never heard someone call it Strava. Like, I'm going to be honest. You're on your own.
Yeah, that tends to be the way I pronounce things is wrong, but that's pretty sweet that Strava is, would we call it a social media for health people?
I feel like it's like a place for people who do a lot of running or biking and stuff to hang out without people thinking they're weird.
Yeah. That's
like, I feel like if normal social media saw every time someone ran or biked, they'd be like, what's wrong with you? Whereas on Strava, everyone's like, you're awesome. Like,
it is.
So it's like a cheerleading crew.
It is.
That's how I feel Strava is.
And that's a good way to put it. Because when I first got it, I just got it to simply track what I was doing. So I knew what I was doing. That's something that I've been doing for a little bit of time on and off with my health stuff. And I even track my foods. Do you track your food intake?
Not at all.
No. Yeah.
No.
Not so much. But yeah, Strava is good for that. And it's interactive, right? So it's pretty sweet. I'm not even sure. I think first you were liking my runs or something before I seen your stuff, which was pretty cool.
Sure.
I don't even know how you found me at first.
I'm not 100% sure. It might have been because you were saying we both know Marlies. So it might have been that I noticed. But again, I'm like a huge fan of anyone local that is actually like running and taking care of their health. So I will follow anyone that's doing that around here. And really, like, especially in Dunnville, we don't have like a running club or a running community. So you kind of have to like search out other people that share that, right? And that's something where, I wish more people would get into getting outside and getting moving and not see it as this like crazy thing. I
agree. It's something I'm trying to help influence on some of my closest friends. And like, I've myself gone through different, what's the right word? Just how hardcore I get into running or health and stuff with life. I don't know with you. Sometimes I'm in it really hard, sometimes a little bit less. It's been a while since I've been off, but while in it, I do try to encourage my friends because I'm sure you know as well, I eat a lot of pizza. I am a food addict.
But pizza/carbs goes really well with running.
Yes, it does.
So that's a really good dance to have.
Yeah. Some of my best runs are after I do 12 pizza reviews. I have like all this energy.
Well, that is a cool thing. I have the opposite. I can't have pizza. So no pizza for me. Actually, like I can't have wheat. I discovered that this past year, but I actually make pizza.
Yes.
So you review pizza. My kids would say my pizza's the best.
Yeah.
Because today is pizza movie night. So our family started a tradition, I gotta say, like at least 5 years ago now, where we did this touch point of like every Friday, we're gonna make pizza and then we're gonna be home together and watch a movie.
That's amazing.
And so my teens still stick around for the pizza end of it. They do tend to ditch out of the movie now. It's also very hard to find movies every week.
Right.
Like tonight we're gonna do Survivor, because we have to catch up on it. And
watched it last night.
Okay. We've only watched the first one, so don't say.
No spoilers.
I've heard there's like medical leaves and stuff happening.
I'm not saying nothing. So I'm not going to be that person.
We're going to do that. But yeah, so then I make pizza every week. So when the kids get home from school on Fridays, they know that like we're rolling out dough. They help cut up all the veggies and do everything. And
that's an amazing.
It's pretty cool. So I have my own little like section. I make this homemade breadish thing that I eat each day, and I put some sauce and cheese on that. So I would never review that. That's actually not great. However, they do like our pizza.
Yeah.
So.
Wait, what do you do for yours instead of having? Is it the wheat? Is it the wheat that's the problem?
I can't have wheat, like gluten. Yeah. It's not like I can, but I have a sensitivity to it. So I actually make this kind of mix. It's eggs and flaxseed and like ground oats and pumpkins. It's a bunch of health stuff.
Yeah,
Chia
it sounds
seeds.
great.
And then I make kind of a sheet pan of it and I keep it in the fridge. So we have chickens, we have eggs every morning. And I now have my eggs with that instead of bread.
I
And then we
like-
make bread for the rest of the family. So
I like it. I have had a really good cauliflower crust from the Lock in Port Colborne, which makes my favorite pizza. But I tried their cauliflower crust one time, and it wasn't until I was like focusing that I could tell that it wasn't normal
ooh,
crust.
okay. You
Yeah.
can send me that
I will,
place because
yeah.
then we'll maybe try that.
Yeah,
Because anything gluten-free, they're gross.
Yeah.
No
I
offense.
know,
Someone
I
said
know.
it's like eating cardboard. So I'm like, I'm going to save my money.
I've
We're
tried a
good.
couple, and yeah, it's not so much.
But if you review a place like that, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
interesting. Yeah, but I like how Strava did that because, like I was saying with my friends, I have some friends like everybody likes to go out to eat and go out even to drink. I don't do a lot of that. But I love food, but I tell a lot of my friends like I say no to going out to eat a lot of time because like I'm trying to like I got a run coming up and I'm trying to lose a few pounds still. So like when I go out to eat, I have bad self-control. It's hard for me to go out to eat and have like 5 chicken wings. I want to have like 50. So
totally.
it's easier to have 0 for me than to have 5.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I try to get my friends, even my brother. My brother's the guy I love most on this planet. He always wants to go out to eat. I'm like, bro, tell me, like, say, let's go for a walk. And I'm like, I'll drop what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But asking me to go for dinner, I'm like, sorry, no.
Yeah, totally.
So like, yeah, it's nice finding people that are into the health stuff.
Yeah. I do have a solution for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, you're not. I was going to say, have a really tight budget.
Yes.
And then you can't go out to eat. And then walking becomes the thing. So like I have a big family and we have a big budget, but that just means like going out to eat is not a thing for us. So
That's good.
then you start making pizza at home and
You got some
going
Dutch
for
in
walks, 100%.
you. I love it.
But I have to ask, like, did you get into running for like the weight loss part of it? Like
Yeah.
what was that the driving factor?
Yeah, like when it depends on how far back you want to go because when I first started ever running at all, like back in high school, I played football and that was part of whatever. But then like my football coach, Rocky DiPietro, CFL legend, Hall of Famer,
Okay.
he ran a running class. So I joined it and like I would run 5K and it was twice a week and I would run with him in the back because his knees were busted. So that was like my first exposure to running was in high school. But then about maybe 15 years ago when I decided to lose weight, I got into running and doing 5K. Well, my first run wasn't 5K. It was 0.6 kilometers.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah, 0.6 to 1.2 to 3 to 5. And then I held at 5 forever. But it's always been weight loss. Yeah. And even now, like now it's managing the pizza and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And like we were just talking, like I find running super therapeutic.
100%.
I don't know about you, and I'll find this part interesting. Part of how I find it therapeutic is like I work a lot. Like a lot of my waking hours, I don't have kids, is spent working in one facet or another. And when running, I get to turn that off, even though sometimes I take phone calls, which happens and is fine. But I'm not texting, I'm not looking at the screen. And I use that time to put on an audiobook.
Yep.
Most audiobooks I listen to are something to do with business or health or improvement, stuff like that. And yeah, even though I only absorb about maybe 10% of what's being said, and sometimes I'll have to listen to a book twice before I catch some of all the main points, it's still, I find that time, for me, that's therapeutic running time.
For sure. 100%.
When you're running, do you listen to that or music or do you go nothing?
Yeah, so it just depends on my mood, and I do find running very therapeutic. So I'm gonna share how I kind of got into running.
Yes, you asked
So
me,
it's
I
funny
didn't
you
ask you.
talked about sports in high school. I ran 800 meters in grade school. Like I actually went to track and field day for it,
Nice.
like master field day.
Yeah.
And then I got to high school and I became a smoker and hung out in the back corner and did nothing.
Really? I did not see that
useful.
coming.
Well, I've been told that a few times, but I definitely was a struggling teenager.
Interesting.
It's what led to the field that I'm in now, right? So I went to school for child and youth work, and I really have a heart for kids and for teens, especially like when I was in high school. One of the saving graces for me was I did a co-op in the grade school, but I was way more interested in the kids that were struggling and in that back corner not getting it than the main class that was focused in. And so that's what led me into that field.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I met my husband at the end of college. We got married the following year. I worked a super high stress job. Like I was crisis support worker for kids in care that were breaking down homes and stuff. So ate a lot, drove around a lot, met with a lot of very stressful crisis situations, which I was good at, but has a toll. At the time, I then also was expecting our first son. And I remember I gained over 50 pounds with that pregnancy.
Wow.
And it was so funny because I joke with him that he had like an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Like he came out and he was all of 7 pounds. I'm like, what? And so that was the start. I had Aiden, and you go into that new mom thing, and I felt just insecure in my body. We also at that time, instead of going back into that stressful work environment, we actually... I don't know how less stressful it was, but we started fostering teenage girls. So we were living in Waynfleet at the time. I've said that too. We were like just over by the auction barn, Meisner Road area,
nice.
On our country block. And so we took in our first girls. I did not want to foster teenage girls because they're very difficult.
I can
my
I
plan,
imagine.
given the kids that I worked with, was to take in like young boys. And then we had them call and say, well, we have this girl. She's 16, but developmentally she's 8. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And that kind of began that journey. So by the time Joseph was born, that's my second son. He's now
name.
14.
Yeah.
So after he was born, we found ourselves, I remember having a teenage girl, our daughter Sam, she's now 29. So it's that long ago, but well, she'll be 29 this year. Yeah. She had just moved in and was in grade 9. So struggling herself. Right. Joseph was a newborn. Aiden was a toddler. He was 2.5. And I felt like I was a mom and I was getting thunder thighs. And I just felt like I needed something. And my sister said, go for a run. Running is like the best. If you don't have a lot of time, it's the best sport for like, just losing weight, but also building muscle. Because it works all your different systems, right? Like you need the strength, but you need your aerobic system working. So it's great. Yeah. So same as you, I started by running. I started in the middle of winter. Like I think Joseph was 3 or 4 months old. Yeah. Like terrible timing. And my husband at the time was still working. He worked for the Tribune in Welland. Mm-hmm. And so I had to go up at like 5 a.m. in the dark, in the snow. I had an old ratty pair of shoes my sister had given me. And I just would start going down our road. And I'm like, how far can I get? Right. And so our road, I remember distinctively from like where we lived to the end was 2 kilometers. So I first worked up like a walk run system to the end of the road and back. Nice. And then once I kind of got that down, I took our van at the time and drove 2.5 kilometers from our house because I didn't have a watch. Yeah. So I just did it on my odometer. I'm like, okay, this is the turnaround. And then I learned how to do a 5K. Awesome. And then eventually, and we had another girl move in with us at the time, Liz, who I love dearly, but it was a lot. And so I just started needing breaks as a mom. So it morphed from being about fitness. It started to become more therapeutic and more about taking that break and getting fresh air. My husband also, like there was so much going on. My husband, shortly after, I think Joseph was 1 or so, the Tribune shut down his entire department. They put everything overseas. So all of a sudden we found ourselves in a new stage where he started a business and was home. And that was there were so many things going on, and running really became my therapy. And I eventually ran our country block, which is about 8.5 kilometers. Yeah. And got that down. I loved it. And then I signed up for my first race. I did a 5K in the spring. And then in the fall, there's Road to Hope in Hamilton. I did their 10K run. And I'll never forget it because I ran the 10K and then I left and went home. And then someone called me later and they're like, you got third. I had no idea. I was like, what?
That's hilarious.
Did I? That's cool. So that's when I started to realize, actually, maybe I can kind of run. Like maybe this is a thing. And so, it slowly developed from there. Definitely at the beginning was more, like I said, about fitness and losing weight and then getting in shape and trying to maintain that. I ended up running through all my pregnancies. I had
Yeah.
So after Joseph, we then had Zach and Kira, who you met.
Yes.
And then we also had twins. My youngest two are twins. They're in grade 3 now.
Wow.
And so that pregnancy, I only got to run up until I think 24 weeks before I was forced to stop because it was like they were unbalanced. Sounds really weird, but I just couldn't do it.
So women can run during pregnancy.
100%. I ran the day before I had Zach.
Come on.
I remember seeing my neighbor. I loved her because I would do like, there was a train. Well, there's all kinds of ripped out train tracks in Wainfleet. So I would go like with my stroller down the train tracks and stuff. And so I saw her the one day and she's like, how you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like, I think like tomorrow. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I feel great. Like, yeah, I think that's why I had like easier. After that point, I started having easier pregnancies, easier like. So it's definitely something you can do.
I've never looked into that, but that.
Yeah, but not with twins. Just in case anyone cares, you should not.
Right.
So I definitely lamented that. Like I remember I would drive to like my doctor's appointment and I would see a runner and I'd be like, I just want to pull over. I'm in that stage right now too because I'm recovering. So every time I see someone running, I'm like, I just want to join you. I need to
go for a little run ski.
Go.
What happened with the injury? What happened with this?
So
that's tough.
Yeah, it's definitely, I've never not run for this long since I was pregnant with the twins, but we were in California. We had an awesome time away. My husband and I, we were there for a show for his business. He runs a music store. So
nice.
we were at NAMM, which is like this massive music industry show in Anaheim. And then we love to hike and to run all those different things. He actually runs now as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Like you're doing your first half marathon. He's planning to do one in the fall.
Oh,
so
nice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He slowly has come to the dark side. I've like pulled him over the last few years. I'm like, you can do this. I'm a little selfish because I want when we go away that we can do longer runs together. So right now I think we've done like a 10K together. But
that's
I'm like,
sweet though.
It'd be cool if we can go explore different places and do that together. So
yeah,
it's a little bit selfish.
But that's
I'm quietly training him to.
That's good. It's good selfish when it's helping him out too. So
totally.
like that's good. Yeah.
But so our final day there, we were staying in Palm Springs because we went to see Joshua Tree National Park, which was amazing.
Nice.
If you ever have a chance,
I haven't been there yet.
Really worth going to visit. And that's what we love to do, that visit new places and explore. So the final day, it's actually really ironic because we didn't run together that final morning because I've been training for ultra marathons.
Wow.
I was training to do the Sulphur Springs 80K at the end of May. Wow. That's what I was doing before I was injured.
Have you, what's the longest run you've done?
53 kilometers.
53, which is, what would that, because a marathon's
42.
And
so anything over a marathon is considered an ultra marathon.
Right.
And so that was my very first ultra marathon. I did the Sticks and Stones 53 kilometer because you do 5 loops. So it's a 50K, but it's 53 by the time it's done.
Okay, now we have to pivot a little bit to talking about this because the longest I've ever run one time was just a random Sunday. I went out for a run with a buddy. I think we did 25 or 30 and we were going
quite large for a random Sunday run, but okay.
Yeah, it was so slow though.
Oh, okay.
Like I'd never gone a run that long and he's like, let's go for a long run. But he's like, we're going to do it slow. And this was before I had a watch like this. This was already a couple of years ago. And he's like, every like 15 seconds, he's like, we're going too fast. We're going too fast.
Yeah.
So it was a super slow, easy one.
Yep, totally.
But when you run that long, what kind of nutrition are you doing throughout? Because this is things I'm still learning about nutrition. So
actually any run over an hour, you should be taking some kind of fluids with you.
Right.
And then kind of the rule of thumb is any run over an hour and a half, you should be taking nutrition, like either gels or you're going to see more and more. I have a Dutch side to me.
I like
the
this.
fuel I use is actually just maple syrup.
It's amazing.
Because you can buy a big thing of it at Costco and I have a little reusable container.
Yeah.
And I fill it up, add some sea salt, maybe a bit of ginger, shake it up. Because it started by using Endurance Tap, which is like the name brand, but they were literally selling maple syrup in a container. And I was like, I can do this myself.
Yeah.
So that's primarily what I use. When you get up to, and I use that because I ran Boston last April.
Amazing.
Thank goodness it was last April, not this one. Yeah. So, but I just use maple syrup for that. And
I
then
like
whatever
water.
electrolytes were on.
Just maple syrup, or do you put water in there?
Nope, just maple syrup.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then whatever along the course, they have like aid stations with electrolyte drink. And so I would use that as well.
Yeah.
But once you get above 42, you have to start adding in some food. So I was just starting to experiment with that. You can kind of get away with it with the 50K. I would bring
Right.
like some fruit snacks and that suffices.
Yeah.
Again, just from my kids' stash for school snacks, I steal fruit stations and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I was debating how to add in more food because I knew going into the 80K that I would need some solid food. So most likely I would have taken, there are stroopwafels are really good.
Amazing.
And there are ones that are gluten-free and are not terrible. So I would have taken those with, and then just probably I would have made some energy balls or something like that. So those kind of things you can take with for longer runs, but you do need actual food.
Interesting. This I'll share with you a guy that's just running, not like now I'm just trying to learn stuff, but I've always just like gone out and run.
Yeah.
But like now Strava, talking to a couple friends that are like more intense, and like they're telling me like, you shouldn't be, I do 10K. I don't bring water or anything on the 10Ks. They're like, you're pushing it a little bit, not too bad. But now like that I'm doing the training for running, sometimes they're a little bit longer. They're like, you have to have gels or something.
Yeah.
And same thing as you, I'm not Dutch, but I'm like, I was looking at the gels. I'm like, there's a bunch of,
they're ridiculous. They're like $4 a pack. I'm like,
and there's stuff in there. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I'm like, what is the goal of these things? I'm like, it seems like sugar and like whatever. So I bought,
you need the sugar. Like you need an easily digestible form of sugar. That's what it comes down to, so that you don't start using your body's energy reserves, which you can fake it. Like you can actually, like up to a half marathon, you can fake it till you make it without bringing any fuel supplies. Your body will make it.
Yeah.
You cannot do that with a marathon.
Right.
Like you will fall apart. You have to have,
See, I'm so glad I didn't, because sorry to interrupt too,
No.
because in my mind too, I never really wanted to go and run an organized race, like doing a half or a full. Like I've done a half before. It was just like Saturday. I'm like, I'm running 21K today.
Yeah.
And I went and I did it. And yeah, I was actually really hurting for water. And I was lucky one of my neighbors seen I was dying. I'm like, you got any water? And she brought me water.
Yeah.
But I was planning on doing the same thing with the marathon. I was like, one day I'm going to wake up and just run 41K.
You can't.
I'm glad I didn't, because I think it would have, especially if it was hot out, I might have like.
Oh, you would have done damage to your body.
It wouldn't have been good, eh?
No, but your body would have shut you down. Like at some point during that, if you had no water, no food, your body would have been like, no, this is a bad idea. I'm done. So it will do that, like for sure.
I'm glad that didn't happen.
But I had that, like when I ran my first half marathon, I had no idea what I was doing. Like the longest I ran before my first half marathon was only 14 kilometers. And it was because, again, like God's taken our family through some huge journeys. So literally 5 months before my first half marathon, my husband went through like a medical crisis where he almost passed away. And at the time, our twins were one, like all our kids. Yeah. Oh, by God's grace. Like if you see him now, you would have no idea. But he is a walking miracle, which is just,
What happened? What?
He had a, I'm not going to say the words right, but it was a very rare, like 0.5 in a million odds of it happening. He had like just something attached to his main blood vessel. It was full of infection, and it went into his main blood vessel, and then his whole body went septic, and it attacked his lungs, and then he developed ARDS, which is adult respiratory distress syndrome, and it shut his entire body down. Wow! And then his lungs continued to fill with fluid to the point.
That's so scary.
Yeah, it was a journey. Like we started in St. Joe's. Just so much prayer like surrounding us. It was right around Christmas time.
Wow.
And the miracle was that and things that people couldn't line up, but so much lined up together that he was then transported at the last minute. It was the last night he had, essentially. Like I was being prayed for because we definitely thought we were losing him that night.
Wow.
And then the miracle happened and he was brought to ECMO treatment in Toronto General and spent time there. So all that, yeah. And then was able to finally eventually come back to St. Joe's. He was in hospital for about 5 weeks.
Wow.
But the fact that he walked out of there without any lasting damage, like
That's
he lost
amazing.
about 10% lung function, but that's it.
Wow.
And like I just mentioned, like he's running, he's
That's
active,
awesome.
he's healthy. He's very much the kind of guy that takes care of his health as well, and has really stepped more and more into that over the last few years.
How long ago did that happen? Sorry.
So 2000, I think it was Christmas 2016 into
Oh
2017.
wow. So not that long ago.
No, it was about, yeah.
Wow.
And that was 2017 was when I ran my first half. But because of all of that, and I just started, I'm an outreach worker. So I run programs that just began that January in Denville. So I work for the Denville Youth Impact Center. We do a bunch of after school programs.
Nice.
So that had just begun. He had just gone through that. And so, yeah, half marathon training took a little bit of a backseat.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then I remember the one Sunday afternoon, I was like, well, I got to do something. And I actually remember the route I took running 14K.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the expo the day before the half marathon and meeting some guys from the running room. And they're like, well, what do you have for fuel? And I'm like, fuel? What? So I have some hard learned lessons. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I just gave her, like my calves were done at the end of that, but I made it through that first half marathon. And then I always said, okay, I'll do a half marathon. I'll never do a marathon. And then it was a couple of years later, it was 2019. I did my first marathon also in Denville. We used to have the Mudcat Marathon, which was super cool.
Oh, that is cool.
And was in Sport of the Center. So it was kind of this cool opportunity to do something with the kids I worked with. We did like a running club together, and then we would do this marathon. They wouldn't do the marathon. They would do the 5K. And then I would do the marathon. But so then I did the Mudcat Marathon in 2019. And I actually decided as a good goal that I should qualify for Boston in my first marathon. Because I'm like, if I'm going to put all this effort in, I'm going for it.
Just to here, I just found out not long ago, to qualify for Boston, you got to run a like really fast time. Like people, I can't just go to Boston to run the marathon. You have to qualify by running. What's the time? So
for me, I had to run it in under 3 hours and 35 minutes. But there's a cushion because quite often you still don't make it in. If too many people meet the time deadline, then they take the fastest. So I told myself I had to run my first marathon in under 3 hours and 30 minutes. Yeah.
That's
it
so
is what
wild.
it is.
That's so what do you know what pace that is?
It's under a 5 minute pace. I think
Under
it's like,
a 5.
Yeah, I think it was like 4. Yeah. So, and I didn't have like, now I understand how to properly train.
Yeah.
I didn't back then. I did all my runs at that pace. Like, yeah. So I was like, okay, I have to run all my long runs under a 5 minute pace. Like, so
I don't even know how to train properly, but that doesn't sound like it's proper.
It wasn't proper. So now I've learned you can run a whole lot of your runs very easy, very slow, and then do speed race. So there's a dance too, but that's why I've started coaching. I learned all of this and I was like, there's a much easier way than what I was doing. But at the time, and I gave her, so like the first 21 kilometers, like that half marathon of the marathon, I did that pace. And something happens in a marathon and they talk about it, but when you actually experience it. So at like 21 kilometers, my body's like, we're good. Like, we're done. And I'm like, no, we're not. We're in Cayuga. Like, we got to get to Denville. We're not done.
That's awesome.
So then from that point until like 30, 31 kilometers, my body was like fighting me, but still keeping a pace because I'm looking at my watch. Like, I cannot go over 5 minutes a kilometer. Like,
you're running at that pace. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. It's not like when I go for my 10K, I'm like, oh, at my like 6 minute kilometer, just jotting along. You're running.
It was running. And then I got to that 30, 32 kilometer mark and they talk about the wall, which is for real a thing. And around that 32 kilometer, my whole body was like, sit down. Like, you're done. And I'm like, I'm not done. I have another hour. Like, we're not done. And then like that last hour was like mind over matter. Like it was telling myself like, suck it up. Like,
what was hurting?
Going.
Like what's that?
Everything. There There was nothing not hurting at that point.
Eh?
Like, because your body goes into survival mode. So it's like, you're crazy. I'm done. We're done. And I'm like, we're not done.
And
so it was like, and I have a very strong mind. And so in my mind, I was like, you told people that you're doing this in 3:30. So you're doing it.
I love it. I love that.
That is what happened. And so I just pushed it. And I think I finished, it was 3:29 when I finished. So I got through. I remember my poor mom and mother-in-law, they don't understand why I run. And actually, every time I have a race, especially now that I do like ultras and trail running, my mom's like, I'm just praying for you that you won't get hurt and that you will be okay. And I'm like, it's going to be fine. But she was there when I finished that first marathon. And I think she was scared, like, because I probably looked really white. And
probably rough.
Like I was shaking. They had to put one of those space blanket things on me, right?
Yeah,
so she was like, not like, yay, Erica, you did it. She's like, sit down. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So she supports me, but from afar. I think she would rather, like, I had to even be careful how I told her that I broke my ankle because I'm like, she's going to freak out. Like, so even just sharing that news, I was like, I'm okay. I'm just coming home in a cast. But we're fine.
So tell me about finishing though. When you finish, what do you feel like? How long did that recovery take? Because I haven't run that long. That to me, that's because at some point I do want to try. Like I said, I thought one day I'd wake up and just do it, but even training for it and all that.
So it just depends. So it depends because I've done 42-kilometer training runs. I've done 45 because now I'm into ultras. And then that I can do and do a 10K the next day.
Right.
However, it depends if you're racing, right? So when you race something, you hopefully are like putting all your effort for that distance into it. So then there is a recovery after. So generally speaking, after a marathon, it's like a rule of thumb for sure for 7 days. No exercise afterwards. Like
no exercise.
No, because your body's broken down. Like think of the muscle breakdown that happens, right? Like you've done damage. Your body to put that kind of distance, your systems kind of stop. Like so much happens internally.
You're making it sound like it's bad, but
no, it's awesome.
I love it.
For anyone not running at this point, this is a great idea. No, it really is. But there's different characters in running, right? Like my husband will run, and I actually did a 5K with him this past summer. It was really cool. It was at a winery. I highly because you get wine afterwards.
Oh, sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So it was in like Vineland Way, and I ran with them, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to like coach you to run this 5K. And so he did it in like a PR for him, like a personal best. He didn't even know what a PR was. I'm like, that's amazing.
Nice.
And so we finished and I'm like, you did it. And he looked at me, he's like, I don't really care. Like, he's like, I really like going for a run. I love doing something like this, but just for the fun of doing it. Like he's not competitive.
Right.
So he could care less about like meeting a certain time goal. Whereas I'm competitive by nature.
Yeah, that's interesting because I'm like a mix between. I used to be way more competitive. Now I'm a little bit less, but I just ran a PR on my 10K and it was pretty sweet. And now I'm like, I want to beat that.
Right. So, and I'm not trying to like beat everybody else. I'm trying to beat myself.
Yeah.
That's why I love running.
Yeah.
Because you can go to a race. Like I love people when I went to Boston, they were like, what place did you get? I'm like, I don't know, like 9,000, whatever. Like no clue. And they're like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, it's Boston. Like you have to qualify to, I was there with Olympians. Like
that's wild.
It was wild. That's an experience. Oh, we took our 2 oldest boys and we actually are going to make a point of taking, we have like 3 sets of kids. We have the olders, the middles, and the youngers. So we want to like make a point of taking each set probably when they're in like grade 9, grade 10, just to go experience Boston, because even as a spectator, it's something out of this world. Like it's so cool to be a part of.
Boston's a sweet city too.
Yeah, but just there's something that happens at that marathon weekend, and I've heard about it, but you don't know it until you're like a part of it.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, I can imagine. When is it? It's coming up, isn't it?
April. Yeah, usually it's there. They have forget. They have a holiday on a Monday in April, and that's when it is. So last year, I think it was around April 18th or something like that. And it'll be again this year.
I don't know if I'll ever run that one or not. Cause like I see the times that are needed. I'm like, that is hardcore.
Never say never.
Yeah, that's
no
true.
idea.
That's true. That's true. Cause like, yeah, maybe we'll talk a little bit about training for a run because like, yeah, for me, you're calling it race and everything. And it's just until recently, I'm starting to use that even verbiage of the half marathon, calling it a race because I've never thought about doing those things. Like I said, I'm like, I like to run. I'm like, why would I want to get together with people to run when I can just go outside and run? But then like this came up where my one friend, like now that I'm even dialing it in more for health, this is how it came to be for me with this. And then talk a little bit about training, but she's ran a year ago. She wasn't running. Then like we kind of talked, I don't think I had any influence. She got into running. Not long after she runs a half, she runs another half. Now all of a sudden she's training for a half triathlon.
Okay.
And like she's running, she's got a coach, she's biking, she's swimming. She hadn't been swimming. And like I love that I have a friend that's like even more into health than I am.
Yeah.
And then she's like, there's a half coming up that I'm doing. She's like, it's the last one I'm going to do for a while because I'm going to be focusing on my triathlon. And she's like, you should come. And I'm like, Then I'm like, you know what? I'm like, it's in BC. I'm like, I haven't been out to BC. That'd be sick. Actually hang out with a whole bunch of people because she's going with a bunch of friends that are all into health. So did that. And then, with that started getting into actually training for it and thinking of it as a race, not against other people, but like, I'm like, okay, like now I'm like, I'm training and it's a race.
Yeah.
I've set a goal time of 2 hours.
Yeah.
Which I think I can do. At the time, I wasn't too sure, but now I'm feeling more confident about it. But training for it has been interesting because for me, not knowing anything, I just all of a sudden run 10K 4 times a week. And I'm like, okay, I do 10K anywhere between like an hour to 106. My time's always somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I'm going to run for double that, I want to beat what's my better average time. I'm like, if I'm going to go run. But then I'm like, I started thinking, I'm like, I'll just start running 20K at that time or whatever, which I haven't done yet, but I'm like, that's how I'll train. But then getting the Garmin watch and actually going through some run training, it's helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
By doing those speed repeats and like some long, slower runs. The speed repeats, I think, are the biggest game changer for me, even though I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any science behind it, but when I do those, I run my fastest times. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, because there's this philosophy of like 80-20 rule, which is like 80% of your running should be like restorative running. So like easy running. And by easy running, like we could talk the way we're talking right now, but running. So very much like you can hold a conversation with someone. It's not actually exhausting your body. I mean, the kilometers will, but the speed itself should be nice and easy and just recovery. Yeah. And then about 20% is where you put in your speed work. And so depending, I have some people that say if they run 4 days a week, I'll tend to put like a day with a workout, like a shorter run workout.
Meaning?
But then, so for example, say you're running 40 kilometers a week. Let's just put that out there because you said 4 10Ks. Yeah. So I would break that up different. So I would maybe give you like a 14K run on the weekend as your long run. And because you're running 4 times a week, I would add some speed work within that long run. And there's different kinds of workouts depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So for example, sometimes I'll give a runner like a fast finish. So say you're doing 10K easy, that easy pace that we've developed. And then I will say for the last 4 kilometers, I want you to pick it up to your race pace.
I like it.
So it teaches you to run fast on tired legs. Whereas if you did 4K fast at the beginning, that doesn't do the same thing. Because then you have 10K slow at the end. Yeah. So, and then there's different repeats that you can do within like 800 meter repeats or like say 2 kilometers at a certain speed and then 5 minutes of rest and then another 2 kilometers. Right. And there's different ranges of paces that develop different things because you want to work on like your anaerobic and your aerobic base.
Look at you getting scientific.
So,
I like it.
That's just,
it's good. I like it.
That's what I've learned over the years. So I went, for example, before I ran that first marathon, I was running all my runs around that 4:55 to 5:05 pace.
Wow.
For me, that's actually my gray zone, which means that's like a zone I never run in anymore. And that's what I was doing all my runs in.
Yeah,
so my easy pace would be anywhere, depending on how I'm feeling, from like a 5:15 to a 6-minute pace. Because it's more about listening to your body and going at a pace that is recovery. So I'm not even going to run, even though I could run an easy run some days at 5:15. I wouldn't do that every time because that's not always a recovery pace for me. So it's more about listening to your body.
Totally.
And then speed work for me. So my marathon pace right now is around 4:35. So you're going to see if I'm training for a marathon, I might have some runs that are a bit slower than that pace in that 4:45, but then I'll have some that are above that pace into the half marathon. So until we get close to the marathon, I wouldn't actually train as much in that 4:35 pace.
Right.
And then there's speed work that gets added in. So you have like a possible 5K time. You do some speed work within that range. One of the things I'd love to do someday, one of my bucket list goals would be to break the 20-minute 5K. And I have not been able to do that. I think the fastest I've done it is in 21.05, like just over 21 minutes.
Break the 20.
Yeah. The problem with me though is I really love distance. So there's different kinds of runners as well. There's like, you call them like your fast, I call them the speedsters, people that really enjoy speed work. And then you have endurance monsters who really enjoy endurance. I'm an endurance monster. Like I joked, if I was a horse, you have your stallions and you have your Clydesdales. I'm a Clydesdale.
Yeah.
Like I can pick a pace and lock into it for 50 kilometers, no problem.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But put me in that stallion of like 5K, get under a 4 minute per kilometer, and I'm gassed. Like I can't.
Yeah.
So there's different ways that we can run as well.
Yeah.
And so you develop it based. So I have some people I work with that don't do well with high mileage. Like we have to find a way to train for like a marathon, but without going over a certain amount of kilometers. Whereas I have other people that love the endurance piece of it.
Interesting.
And some people hate running alone. They want to always run with other, like I love running alone. Like you put me in the woods for 3 hours and I am like the happiest I'll ever be. That's just, I love it. But again, it's very therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
So because my weeks and my days are so busy, running just quiets everything. You asked what I listen to when I run. And that really, if I am working through something, I will use that time. I'll listen to a podcast or a book. I'll listen to music. Quite often I'll listen to nothing and just pray.
Yeah.
And like connect back in and be like, okay, God, where are we headed? Like, what does this look like? So that's a huge part of it too for me. And I have my buddy Cola. She's my sweet German Shepherd / lab. So that's also what's led me more into doing trails because I love taking her with.
Yeah.
And I love not putting her on a leash and just letting her, poor thing has tried to catch a squirrel for like 3 years now. She can't to save her life, but she's well intended. She'll chase them up different trees and stuff, and
then she'll come back to you like you.
Oh, she has such a good recall. Like yesterday we went for a hike together. And she was ahead of me, and then a couple was coming through with a couple of golden retrievers, and all I have to be is like Cola, and she comes right back.
That's awesome. You guys trained well. I'm not shocked.
Again, by God's grace, I am not a dog trainer. So I don't know how that happened, but it's good. But she keeps me safe, and I always wonder because she is so sweet if she would actually protect me. But the one day last summer, we were on the trail. We came around a corner, and a couple came through. And I didn't notice them because it was early in the morning. We just kind of went around a corner. So I jumped, like kind of scared, and she growled. I was like, yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Right away, I was like, no, Cola, we're good. And then she was fine. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. That's probably something you don't deal with, but ask any female runner. And there's a lot of fear around running.
Yeah. I never really thought about that. We were just talking how I had a dog a little bit attack me not too long ago, but I've never been worried about
I'm scared of dogs. Like, and again, and I said that to you, I had a solid attack by a German Shepherd, a few stitches later. So, dogs scare me, but more men scare me.
Yeah, for sure.
It hasn't happened because I'm not dissing Waynfleet.
Yeah.
Because
That's
Dunnville is Dunnville.
Yeah.
But when we lived in Waynfleet, and I think because we were like a road away from the Avondale / beer store.
Beervendale.
Yeah. I wasn't going to call it that, but yes.
Yeah.
And so then, being there, I think guys would just have a beer and go down the back roads, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so I got harassed quite a few times while running
I could see
on
that.
our back roads. And
Redneck kicks.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it was
I'm one
really,
of them.
you're not, because you're not going to bug women on the road.
Not that way, but
Yeah,
born and
totally.
raised here.
We live in the country. I get
Yeah.
it. I've got boys with trucks and 4-wheelers and all of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been a big thing. And
could see
so
that.
when you're a girl and you're running, you take pepper spray, right?
Yeah,
like
smart.
Which you're not supposed to have in Canada. We have coyote spray. But
Good.
sorry to say that, but I totally take it with me,
Yeah,
and I take
it's
my
smart.
German
Yeah, you
Shepherd
gotta
with
protect
me.
yourself.
I have a family. I want to come home at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And then I really watch the other real big danger in running, I find, is people not seeing you. Like quite often. And I can see people on their phones and I can see them veering.
Right?
So I appreciate running into like against traffic, because I definitely have ditched out into the ditch a few times over the years to just.
I know some of these concerns. I had a close call over on Forks one day too, where I didn't even know. It was literally, there's one spot on Forks. I go on Forks for about 300 meters.
Yeah.
And there's one spot where the shoulder becomes nothing.
Yeah.
It's only a few steps, but literally at that spot, a car passed a car. Mm-hmm. And I was at that spot and it passed me. And had I stepped like another step over or whatever, it probably would have hit me.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, that part's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's another reason I like trails.
Yeah,
So-
trails. Yeah, that's a
And
good
we have some beautiful ones around here. Like if you hit up the Bruce Trail, is like,
I've never gone trail running before.
okay, there's danger. Like,
Yeah.
obviously with my broken ankle, it's not always the safest
Right.
thing. It's part of what you deal with, but it is beautiful to do.
Yeah, I
and
should
we
try.
really
I'm
do like literally from here, you're about half an hour from, well, you're probably even closer than I am, but anywhere along the Bruce Trail, like there's, you can just look it up on Google. There's an app called All Trails, and you can actually like zoom in on a map and just find that. Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing.
All trails.
Yeah.
I'll take a look.
Yeah. So that's part of, and I just find just being in nature is really.
Yeah, that sounds cool for sure. Because I like hiking too, but I don't go as often. But yeah, a trail run would be nice.
Yeah, and even like around here, so Chippewa Creek is closed right now. So you can go that has a nice, I always call it the pond. There's a trail around it.
Yeah.
Rock Point's awesome.
Yeah.
Bing Park's closed right now, but I usually meet up with a friend there as well to go for a run. So
Nice.
there's a lot of great places to kind of go explore. Actually, I took Cola to Rock Point. I took my bike. I'm allowed to bike now. And
Nice.
so, because the poor thing was running like over a marathon herself. And she runs with me all the time. So when I got back and was injured, she all of a sudden was put on hiatus and she didn't know what to do with herself. So I took her for like a solid, because Rock Point, I could let her be free. There's no one there right now.
Yeah,
so then I could bike for an hour and just tired her right out. But she was so happy.
So yeah, your injury, this sucks.
It's almost, it sucks, but in the same breath, there's always a lesson to be learned.
Totally.
There's always something cool going on, and God's always at work. So being injured, it was at the end of our vacation. It was the last day. It was at the very end of my trail run. And it was actually, like I said, Cyrus didn't come with because I was going on a hilly trail run and he doesn't do hills.
Right.
So our plan was he was going to go for a run around the resort where we were staying. I went to run up a mountain because that's what I do.
Yeah.
And then we were going to meet up after. And so I took the car, drove to this little spot, met a really cool mountain biker from BC who just happened to be there, who told me where to go. And then, it was an old road that had become a trail. And so I went about 5 kilometers up it. It was straight up. And then I got a little scared of mountain lions because like it was so removed from anybody.
Yeah.
So I turned around, I'm like, gonna get home without getting eaten.
Smart.
And made my way down. And then it was like I was about half kilometer from the trailhead. But it had opened back up to like a road. So I thought I was kind of in the clear. And one of the big things of trail running is you got to look down. And I wasn't looking down. I was looking ahead because I was like, okay, I'm almost done here. And there was erosion in the road. Oh. And because it was on a downhill, I had a lot of momentum. I was running quite fast. And so my foot caught and then just my whole ankle. And it was one of those things, everyone asked me after, like, didn't you call Cyrus or anything? I think I do best in crisis. And so I was in crisis because I had just broken my ankle. But so I went to get up because I was kind of falling this way. But then I couldn't get up, obviously, because, and so I turned to the other side, used my other leg to kind of get up and assessed myself. I've fallen before. So you kind of do that. All right, what does this look like? I was bleeding from a few spots and I'm like, okay, we can do this. And I tried to take a step and I'm like, we cannot do this. And I could see my ankle like swelling like an egg. I'm like, oh no, this is probably actually bad. Because I heard it snap, but sometimes your tendons can make a noise.
Yeah,
so it's like, maybe.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of hobbled my way out.
Wow.
I think just on sheer like shock, I was like, okay, got to get to my car, got to get back to the hotel. And so that's what I did. I actually drove back with my broken ankle.
You're such a trooper.
Well, no, I think I was just in shock.
A shock trooper.
Yeah. And I got back, I parked, I went inside, and Cyrus had finished his run. He was showered, he was getting ready because we were going to go do the downtown thing, whatever. Right. And I come in the door covered in like dirt and blood. And I'm like, hey, don't be mad. But he's like, why would I be mad? I'm like, I don't know. Because now we get to spend our last day at a hospital. So that's what happened. They were really good. We had Visa, so we had insurance, and that part was really easy. And then we just kind of made our way back, and that began the journey. So,
and when did that happen?
End of January. So this week would have been 8 weeks ago.
It's not even that long ago.
No.
You're looking pretty good. Like I didn't even notice you limping or anything.
I'm not limping anymore. No. So I right away, I love natural treatments. Like I love our medical system. It's served us well. Really enjoy them. But then I do
crisis,
but I do know that there's other things we can use for healing. So like arnica cream is for like swelling and pain, and so I used that right away. And then there's a certain herb. It's called comfrey. It's actually called bone knitter, or bone knit or something.
Interesting.
So right away used that as well. So
is that a topical?
So I made a topical like using the leaves.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So then I have a homeopath, and he actually sent me. It was kind of cool. He sent me something right away when it happened to take internally. And when I looked up the remedy he had given me, it was actually made from comfrey as well.
Interesting.
So I kind of had a double thing going on. So I do think, and I had a clean break. I should also mention that. Like it was a fracture that didn't involve surgery or anything like that, right?
Nice. Yeah.
So the bone stayed in place. It was a matter of keeping it still and healing it. So 8 weeks later, I'm walking, I'm hiking again. And actually I have physio at 1. So
how are we doing?
We're okay. We're at 11. But, and so, she said today we're going to try jogging, little spurts. Yeah. So we're getting there.
That's exciting.
I haven't totally canceled all my races for this spring yet.
No. I
was supposed to do a 50K at the end of April. On the rail trail. So pretty calm trail. There's from Hamilton to Brantford is a rail trail. It's pretty cool. And so I've kind of gone down to a 25K for that one. So that's my first goal, is to whether I run it, but I'm pretty confident that I can still do a 25 kilometer at that point.
Nice.
And then I took that 80K at Sulphur Springs and I put that down to a 50K. So that's more ambitious. That's the end of May.
End of May. That's not even too far away.
It's not that far. It's about 8 weeks from now. So, again, I'm holding these all very open-handed, that if it happens, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. If I can't run the 50K, I'm going to Sulphur Springs to help and cheer people on because it's such a cool community. That's the other thing. Trail running community versus road running community, totally different.
Interesting.
Like road running, they're all at the start line. They're like ready to go. And trail runners are just such a laid back crew of people. Oh, it's such a different vibe and it's really fun. So there's a lot of cool trail runs that happen in Ontario, and that's part of what led me there too. I still feel like a bit of what's the word for it? Like you're faking it. Like there's a complex imposter. Yes, because I win these races, like these from the women's, but when I did the 53K, I won first place for women.
Sick. Congrats.
The next year I did the 26 and a half, and I actually got third overall and first for women. And then the 50K first for women last fall at a different, more.
That's impressive.
So it's cool, but I feel like an imposter because
you're winning?
Well, no, because it's like I don't belong up front. Like, because when you start a race, like the faster people will go at the front, and you kind of line up.
Oh, I don't know. That's how it works. Okay, yeah.
That is how it works.
Gotcha.
So I feel a bit like an imposter going towards the front, but I do know that if I don't do that, I'm going to get stuck at the beginning of a race. But it does. There's this weird part of me that's like, I'm going to be 40 this year. Like, I'm a mom. I got a bunch of kids. Like, my running is not my job. It's my love, but it's not my main thing, right? So, there is a little bit of it where you're like, so, like, should I be up here?
If you're winning all these things and placing like that, yes.
I know, but you do.
I feel it. Yeah, I feel you.
It's weird.
Yeah,
so
I feel you.
But that's where it's at. But I just love it. I love everything. I love coaching people. Like that's because I do geek out about this stuff. Like that is, I have a handful. Like it's not a massive amount of people, but I have a handful of runners, and it's just, I think also because I started not understanding everything.
Right.
Right. And so, and I myself am coach. I should mention that. Like, I don't count on I'm taking a break right now. My hope is to start again April 1st. I'm counting on her to help because I'm the kind of runner that'll do too much if it's up to me. So some runners, like you have to help them to do enough.
Yeah.
And then other ones, you're actually their breaks where it's like, no, you actually have to run easy now. Like slow down.
Right.
Right. And no, you don't need to do an extra 10 kilometers this week. So there's two different camps of people. I fall into the, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. And then
good. You're coachable. That's good.
I'm coachable, but if it was just up to me, I tend to do too much. So I appreciate the breaks of having a coach.
Side. Yeah.
So
that's good that you coach and get coached. I think that's super important. I think when somebody stops learning, it makes it harder to pass stuff on. So I think that's really good. I'm impressed. This is the first time we've met, and you're a super impressive woman. I must.
Impressive or crazy? That's the running joke at our house. I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know either.
My character. This is how God created me. So I'm like, we're here.
It's impressive. It's crazy. I mean, crazy's good too. So I don't know. I'm not one. I'm not judging. Impressive is good by me.
Oh man.
I will ask you a little bit about the training that I'm doing. I think it's great. We might have to talk some more about actual coach. I don't know yet where my running journey is going to go. I have no idea.
Totally.
But, for me, getting this watch has been a huge improvement. I know it's not as good as a personal coach or anything, but
no, but it is teaching you because it's a journey.
Yeah.
And it goes year over year. It's not, that's one of the things when people come to me, they're like, okay, this is my goal. And I'm like, that's a cool goal, but like, it takes time.
Right.
Like running is one of those things that incrementally year over year, you get better, you get stronger.
Like anything, but running for sure.
Yeah. But people want like quick goals and like
that's
quick,
crazy.
I'm going to do this. And this is what it's going to, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I did like push my way through a first marathon. So I get that end of it, but for the most part, and that marathon, that first marathon nearly killed me to get 3:29. And then this past April, so almost a year ago, I ran Boston and I ran it in 3:17.
3:17?
And I wasn't gassed at the end of it. Like
3:17?
Yeah. So that's what develops year over year.
Like rollerblades?
No. Just
3:17,
running. But it was awesome. So again, I had a really good training plan. And I worked through it. I stuck to what was needed. And again, felt like an imposter. Like I lined up and I'm like, there's no way. Because my goal pace was like 4:35 at that point. And I'm like, there's no way I'm keeping this pace for 42 kilometers. But you just start clicking away. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It happens. So.
I was going to ask you with this. Something that. So, this race is still, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this training. The training I'm doing, I think was like a 12, I can't remember how many weeks, but the run is less time away, but I couldn't even, it wouldn't even allow me to set a training if I didn't put at least a minimum amount of time. Something I've heard, I think from Marlies, is tapering before, which I didn't even know was a thing.
100%.
And that's not scheduled for me for this run until after the run.
That makes sense.
So I don't know how to handle that part yet.
Okay.
But like to me, a half marathon's not too crazy.
No.
Like, so like I'm like, do I even have to worry about
I
it?
would taper a bit for sure, especially because you're doing like solid 10K runs. I wouldn't do that the week leading up.
Okay, even before you answer, sorry, let me ask something before I forget. We'll come back to that because one of the things I've been doing too is I lean a little bit more like your style, where the watch has got me doing 4 runs a week. I don't know what it's like for normal people or how it's supposed to work. I'm like I run 4 times a week, so that's how many times it's got me. But each day it tells me to do a run, but I do a 10K. So if most runs are less than an hour or 10 kilometers. Mm-hmm. So I follow the watch for what it says, and then I finish a 10K anyway.
Okay.
I don't know if that's good or bad or not, but that's how I've been doing it.
I would put a little more variety in terms of like putting you into longer than 10K runs and some shorter than 10K runs.
So like the ones that are longer, I still do, but the ones that are shorter, I finish out still. So that's erring on the side of more.
It just depends.
Is that bad?
No, like, because you asked me that, right? You're like, do you think? And I'm like, there's so many factors involved in it. So to just like pick a runner out of the sky and be like, okay, that's that. It's not that 10Ks 4 times a week couldn't work. Mm-hmm. It just depends. There's so many things that it depends on.
I just feel like too, since I'm so used to doing the 10K, especially on the first ones, the first run was like 20 minutes or something. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm not even warmed up. Like I need.
But that's because that's not a customized training plan.
Yeah.
So it's taking a training plan for anyone.
Yeah.
Giving it to you.
Yeah.
And then you're working within that. So that's the difference, right?
Totally,
it's like you said, it's not giving you a lot of variety for dates that you can choose. Like you're not able to put in your race date and do tapering backwards. Like those are the things that you're not going to get. So I find if you're going to use a pre-programmed training plan, and I used to do this before I started actually with a coach, I would take that plan, I'd print it out, and then I would customize it for myself.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So I would research about it and then I would look up, okay, and I do this with runners. I go backwards, like where do we want to end up? Where's the taper time? And then I go back and then I have peak week and I decide this is the amount of kilometers we want for peak week, which is like 3 weeks before. That's like your main training week. And then you start to taper. And so then I go from peak week and then I start developing backwards from there.
Smart.
So you kind of have to have a goal. Sometimes like I'll work with a runner who doesn't have like a specific race coming up and then we're doing base building or something where we're focused on strength training. Mm-hmm. We're focused on just developing those different systems within running until we get ready and lock into a race. So yeah, there's a lot of
interesting.
Yeah.
3 weeks before is peak week.
Yes.
Which I think I'm in about now, but not on my watch. So I should be.
You should be doing your most mileage now. So what's the longest you've run going up to this?
Ever or like since doing this?
Since training for this.
16 or 17K, I think. It was something in there.
Yeah. So, and that's where I would say like for your main peak run this week, I would put you somewhere in that 17, 18 kilometer.
That's supposed to be my run today. So I'll just kick it up a little bit more. I like it.
Okay. And then you should start to back off a bit on your kilometers.
Already within 3 weeks.
Yeah. Like a half marathon, you can do it 2 weeks before. Marathon for sure. There's a 3 week taper. I tend to do peak week 3 weeks out before the main race for sure. But you won't have to slow down your mileage as much going into a half marathon. But definitely like the week of the half marathon, don't do your 10Ks. Like if you want to save your legs for that race and don't do strength training, like let your body rest. It's going to feel so counterintuitive. It's going to feel like you're losing all your fitness.
Yeah.
You're not.
Interesting.
It's a matter of giving your body a break before you put it into a race.
Fortunately for me, it does sound counterintuitive, but like I'm going to BC and I think I'm going on a Thursday. The race is Sunday. Mm-hmm. So like those days, I don't know, probably that makes it a little bit easier or not.
No, you're right. I have a question for you. Do you know the elevation of where you're running?
No.
Are you closer to sea level or up high?
I've talked about it with my friend and I can't remember. She pays a little more attention to that.
Okay. I only ask because my daughter that I mentioned at the beginning, Sam,
Yes.
She lives in Radium Hot Springs, which is like through the pass in BC.
Okay.
So you have to kind of like through between Calgary, there's the pass, and then her town
Yeah.
is right as you come through the mountains. And so back in 2021, when everything was shut down, Banff was having a half marathon. And so my sister and I went out, we visited Sam for the weekend.
Nice.
And then I signed up for this half marathon. And this one I was training myself, but I trained, I worked up, I had a goal and a plan for this half marathon. And then when we arrived in Calgary, we stopped to pick up our race bibs because it was at a running store in Calgary. And she said to me, she's like, "Oh, where are you guys from?" And I said, "Ontario, where we're like super low sea level here." And she's like, "Did anyone tell you about the elevation? Like, cause it's like 3,000 feet,
Right.
I think, above sea level in Banff." And I was like, "No." And she's like, "It does something to your legs." And I'm like, "Oh." I didn't take it for much of what it was worth. And because we were visiting Sam, we did a lot of hiking.
Right.
Like we hiked 14 kilometers up a mountain the day before my goal race half marathon.
Love
and
it.
so I kept a solid, I want to say like 4:15, 4:20 pace for about 12 kilometers. And then my legs shut down.
Really?
They were like lead, cement.
What?
They were done. I was like, oh, this is a thing. Okay. So
Interesting.
that would be my only. Now, mind you, I did do a huge hike the day before, so I did not taper at all going into it. I went full steam ahead with my normal activity
Right.
level right up until the day of. But
Right.
check the elevation, because if you are in more of a mountainous town, maybe you're not. Maybe you're closer.
But even
to
if
like,
it is, what do I do?
you adjust your pace plan.
To like, I still want to run it in under 2 hours. So what? I just change.
Well, okay, then you do your best and see how the elevation kicks your butt. I don't know. It just
We'll see.
depends what
We'll
you were
see.
looking at as a goal pace.
Yeah.
So like
We'll
I would
figure it
say your goal pace was like 5:45 a kilometer, say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then I'm giving that as a number. I would say like start out at like 5:55 and see how your legs are feeling, because
Yeah.
better to finish a bit slower at 5:55 than to try for that 5:45, but the elevation kicks your butt and you're walking the last 5 kilometers.
Yeah. Interesting.
So you it's the same thing you do when you're on hills, you adjust your pace a bit. When you're running straight into the wind, you got to adjust your pace a
Yeah,
bit. Like
freak.
I have a couple people running around the bay this weekend. That thing is a beast, like such a beast. But you learn, like I actually wrote out
Right.
like a plan for them, like, and it's different this year because it's 34 kilometers. They're starting at Iverwin Stadium because
nice.
Cops Coliseum is being renovated. But so it adds 4 kilometers and it changes the way the race flows. So
Interesting.
you kind of break the race up into different sections, but you
Interesting.
can't just give one pace for that whole thing, because
Okay, so that I was going to ask that because I don't know how. So I've got goal pace 2 hours.
yeah.
So when I do it, should I be trying to run that pace the whole time? Or do I go faster and slower? Because I run, like I mentioned, on my speed repeat days. Like I feel like I could do speed repeat like for the half marathon to get my time.
And you might be able to, because that's what you're used to doing. So it's not a terrible idea if
Interesting.
that's what works for you, right? Because
Yeah.
if you haven't locked into it, sounds like you've been doing a lot of like your normal pace running,
Yeah.
and then throwing in some speed, but none of it is at the race pace.
So
Is there some at the race pace?
Yeah, so I'll go over how it's been having me do stuff. It tends to be, so my running days are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which the watch said is not great doing 4 days in a
It
row.
really isn't. But that's
That's what happens.
okay, fair.
Yeah, and it's like, it was like basically saying like no. And I'm like, yes. And it's like, no. And I don't know, but I had to get it. So I thought originally I picked Monday to be my long run days because I come off of 3 days of rest, even though now I'm using those times to do stuff. But I thought it was, but it's not. It's having me on Monday do an easy run.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tuesday, day 2, I'll go with. What does it have me do on that one? I think it is a pace run. So part of it is at the pace.
Yep.
Day 3 is the speed repeats, and day 4 is either a progressive run or a long run.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how it's got me. But yeah, I could have sworn I wanted the long run on after having recovery. I don't know if I messed something up.
It's all good.
So, but that's kind of how it's been having me do it. And like, yeah, I have an appreciation now for training at all, like by having this non-customized plan, because I'm seeing like healthy improvements and I'm feeling better too.
Yeah.
Like even like right now, like I feel like the air is like, I don't want to say sweeter, but I feel like I'm breathing better.
Yeah.
And it's since doing this training only for like, I don't even know how long it's been, 6 weeks, or I don't even know what it is, but
Yeah.
it does help a lot. Like
It does. 100% does.
I never realized that, because people would tell me like, you should do, I'm like, I run.
Yeah.
What? I'm running. Like, what could I do?
But that's how it starts, right? Like, I remember the first day I ran across the Penn Center parking lot without getting winded.
Yeah.
Like, that was such a win for me, because I
love it.
had begun doing this run walking thing. And I was like, how cool is that? And then I remember the first time my watch went over an hour during a run. And that
awesome.
was a huge goal, like, right? So there's such a sweetness in catching those different things. And yeah, it is lifelong learning.
Totally.
Like-
what kind of watch do you wear?
I actually just picked this up this weekend.
Oh,
so,
sweet.
Yeah, this is a Phoenix 6, I think.
Which brand is that?
A Garmin.
Garmin?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I had a Garmin Forerunner always.
Yeah.
But because I'm getting into more ultra running, I wanted a watch that could last longer for like longer runs.
Mm-hmm.
And so my old watch was starting to die way
Mm-hmm.
too often. So it was time to upgrade it. And then this one I actually bought used off of somebody.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was a
Sweet.
great find.
Yeah.
But it can do GPS, like a trail run, for over 24 hours. So
Yeah.
without dying, because quite a few watches, at least the one I had before, wouldn't have kept up for an ultra marathon. So
Interesting. That, like, yeah, you're next level. The watch I had before was a Samsung, and it was a few hundred, $500-ish, but the battery was terrible. I was charging it every night. This one, it's not as good as that one, I'm
so
sure.
what is that one?
It's a Forerunner 265.
255 or
It's not-
265.
I think so.
or-
I think so.
There's a bunch of different.
Yeah.
I did look at that one as an option as well. My old one was a Forerunner 45. Like, it was not,
Mm-hmm.
but it had enough on it that I needed to do up to the marathon level. And I
Nice.
had it, I think, since 2019. So I had it for
Nice.
a long time.
Yeah, that's
Garmin's
sweet.
are an excellent brand
Yeah.
for lasting.
I didn't know the difference.
And
or
that's why I
whatever.
knew I could even buy this used, because I think these watches new are like 1,100, something dumb.
Yeah.
Really dumb. But I'm like,
Dumb and not dumb.
no, but budgeting mom.
I know.
Not going to
No, I
happen.
feel ya.
So this was actually,
You got
I
a
got
good
this
deal.
for a really good
You're
deal.
Dutch. I get it. I love it.
It was one of those things that I just, it came up on the buy and sell or whatever. And I could just tell that I love people who buy really expensive things and then don't use them and sell them. Like, they're my favorite people.
Those are the best.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
usually they're in some fancy, like, Ancaster, Oakville, those
Yeah.
kind of places. And I'm like, hey, I'm just going to drive over from Dunville now and pick up that item you didn't use.
Yeah. I love it.
That's what I do. Yeah.
These are great though.
Yeah.
Super tool. Like, battery life is unreal.
Yeah.
But yeah, the money, I know, same thing. I was looking at these watches. I'm like, it took me a while to figure out which watch to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know Garmin. I forget there's another brand. And like, I liked having a Samsung because of my Samsung phone.
Yeah.
But this has been a great tool because I started swimming now too. And
Okay.
it tracks the swimming really
Yeah.
well. Do you do swimming at all?
I don't.
No?
Not
Doesn't
a-
interest you?
And like, I bike right now because I'm injured, but I really just love running.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I
Everyone's
feel
like,
you.
oh, try this, try a triathlon, dude. And I'm like, I just don't like it.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
Like, I can bike for an hour and I'm okay. And like, I've done a couple longer rides just for the sake of keeping my aerobic fitness, like
Yeah.
my heart going. But
No.
I'm a runner through and through. That's
feel
just,
ya.
that's how I've been created.
I fall back on it too. But
Yeah.
the swimming has been really interesting because I'm a bad swimmer. And
Okay.
like I like learning and everything, but yeah, the watch, regardless of getting into it or not, the watch has been great because I had no idea how it would work or not, and I hit the swim thing, and then it's got the stats like running. It's breaking down the 25 meter, the 50 meter, the whatever paces, and I'm like, because at first it's interesting too, going from a different thing. Like, I can't run like you can, but running 10K, no problem. At the end of 10K, I still feel like, I could run a half marathon right
and
now.
don't forget, you're saying like, comparison is a thief of joy.
Okay.
So like, you look
Good,
at it and you're
good.
like, I can't run like that person. It's like, but you can run better than someone
Yeah,
else.
for sure.
And you're running.
For sure.
Like,
For sure.
I'm such a fan of I've said that to you before. Like, get off the couch, get moving. Like, we see so much mental health and like, yeah.
I know.
It's just, there's some there is mental health. Like, I work with a lot of youth and there are a lot of struggles that these kids are going through. And I do not want to discount that. However, we have lost movement. We have lost getting off of screens. We have lost eating natural, real foods. Like, if you read the ingredients on products that we are consuming, it's bad.
Scary.
And then people are wondering, like, why is my mood low? Right? Like, why am I having a hard time today?
Because you poop food and you don't exercise.
Pretty much. Like, those are key ingredients to healthy living. Water. Are we drinking enough water? Like, and they seem so simple, but like,
it's been lost.
Yeah. My own kids, I see that. Like, my son was saying the other week, he just X'd off a TikTok. He's like, cause I'll go on it and all of a sudden an hour's gone. And I'm like, yeah. And then we're wondering what's happening with our day. Like, why we can't get stuff done and people are anxious and overwhelmed. And there's just so much more. So I have to just share this because part of why I got into coaching for running and part of why I began sharing my running journey was to get people moving, to get them active. But also, I am a big fan of trying to create something that is affordable because as a mom and as like, I work in the non-for-profit industry, right? Like we have a budget that we're living off of. So I've gotten able to, there's certain things for running that are expensive and you can't get away with. You need the watch. You do, well, you don't, but you kind of do too. It helps a lot. But you can find those used quite often online. Shoes are a big expense that no one talks about. We haven't
got to that part yet either.
So terrible. But so that is one thing I have to suck up and pay for.
Yeah.
And then race entries can be expensive. There's no doubting that. So I don't do a ton of races each year because of that. But the barrier to entry to get into running is, like you said, you started on used running shoes. I did the same thing. Yeah. And 2 feet in a heartbeat. I know I hear people have said to me before, like, oh, you've got that gym, or I had a personal trainer before. And it's like, I can't do that. I'm like, the majority of stuff I do is just going out and hitting the street. Totally. Cyrus and I both strength train. We use YouTube videos and free weights that you can also just get off the buy and sell. But like, we have a yoga mat. Juice and Toya are one of the people we love to follow. It's this husband-wife team that are awesome at strength training. That's what we do. So there are ways to do it without breaking the bank, like for sure. My first treadmill, I got off of a friend because I had so many little kids at home that I couldn't always get outside. And this thing was loud. Like it was, I think I paid $200 for it from a friend. And like, it was so loud that it would reverberate through the whole house, but it was a treadmill and it got my feet moving. And so, again, the shoes are the biggest thing, but even my running clothes, I tend to look for them at thrift stores. Because again,
you're
quite
so
often,
Dutch. I love it. I love it.
We gotta make ends meet.
Like, it's the way to do it.
I'm a fan of living off what you got, not living in debt, not living on. So
it's awesome.
And so that's what I was
wish more people had all these practices. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
But with coaching, even that I tried to do in such a way that yes, I was getting paid, but that it was affordable for people to get help if they needed it. Because most running coaches are like $150, $200 a month, and I'm like, I can't even afford to. I have an awesome running coach because I got in when she was just starting out. So I'm kind of grandfathered into a very nice rate. But that's kind of for me. I'm like, okay, well, there is a time component to this, but how can I do this in such a way that's not
You're doing it more for passion.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But I also I use the cash flow from it to like buy shoes. And do races and pay my coach, right? So it's kind of one of those nice things where it's like, it's a cool, but it's all about running. That's what it is.
Totally. So, shoes? Yes.
So I started actually in barefoot running shoes, like Vibram, like those weird toe shoes.
Really?
Yeah, I ran my first marathon in them.
What's that like? I've never even put those on before. It's like
feet on the ground. I'm a big fan. You're going to notice a theme with my homeopath, the natural stuff. Feet on the ground.
Yeah, grounding.
I don't like heels. Like I ditched my boot from my injury as soon as I could because it had me off kilter and
Yeah.
it was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, feet on the ground, 0 drop running shoes. I believe that's why I say this as I'm injured. I believe it's why I haven't been injured much within running.
Yeah.
Because a lot of shoes have a high heel to toe drop.
I think
So
mine are
there's-
like that. I think I have hookahs.
Hookahs have a high stack.
Okay.
But I don't know. Sometimes
okay.
they have a lower heel to toe drop.
Okay, yeah.
So there's 2 things with running shoes, right? There's the cushion from the ground. I could never wear hookahs. Those feel like moon shoes to me.
Yeah, I love
But
them.
I know everyone's
Yeah.
different. For
Yeah.
me, it couldn't.
Yeah.
I feel like I would like hurt myself in them.
What's your
I
arch
like
like?
to feel.
What's your arch like? Sorry.
I don't have an issue with arch.
So you got a normal arch?
Yeah.
I have
for
flat
sure.
foot, but okay, you like
Okay.
to feel. Yeah.
So even now I wore those Vibrant 5-finger running shoes until I hurt my bottom of my foot on a trail. I bruised my bone in my foot because I hit a big rock. So I'm like, okay, I actually need some cushion. So I wear ultra running shoes, which are still very thin bottomed, but thin enough to keep you from hurting your foot on the ground.
Nice.
But also there's 0 drop. And all that means is that your heel isn't lifted at all. So you are, and I find that better because when your heel is lifted, even if you're running more forefront, you're still impacting that heel each time you run. And if you think of your system of your body, when you hit the heel, it sends it up your entire body. Like if you've ever hit your heel on the
Yeah.
ground, you'll feel it go through
Yeah.
your knees, your back, everything. Whereas when most of the impact is on the forefront, you're saving the rest of those body systems. Your foot is taking most of the force. Now, it doesn't come without a challenge. You definitely have to develop calves and a lot of foot strength to be a 0 drop runner. So you can't just go out one day and switch. It takes time to do that. Now, having said that, because I started as a 0 drop runner, I've never had to transition into that. So it's been really cool for me in that regard. So now I wear ultras. They're harder to find actually in Canada.
Is that the brand name?
Yes.
What? Ultra?
Ultra, that's their name brand.
Just Ultra.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. So they have running shoes. They have trail running shoes.
How long do they last you?
Well, there's always the guides that they give. I don't follow those guides. I follow how my body feels.
Yeah.
So I look until they wear themselves out. And once I can definitely see a pattern of wear, then I switch them over. But I don't keep track of how many. I know some people like to keep it like on their Strava or Garmin, like how many kilometers you've run in a certain shoe. I've never done that.
Yeah.
I also switch up running shoes quite often. So I have different shoes that I'll wear on easy days. I have
Right.
speed
Yeah.
shoes. I have trail shoes.
Yeah, you're legit.
Well, it's actually good to rotate through. It sounds like a lot, but once you
No,
have a few pairs
yeah,
of shoes, they
then it
last
works.
a lot longer
Yeah.
because you're either wearing out one pair of shoes always. The problem with having only one pair of shoes is as they wear down, you can be more prone to injury.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas when you're running in
Totally.
a few different pairs of shoes, your body is used to different pairs of shoes, so it doesn't get stuck in a certain pattern, which also helps with not being injured.
Yeah.
And then you'll start to feel when a pair of shoes is starting to go.
So I got to share some shoe experiences with you here.
Okay.
I wear orthotics,
Okay.
which has helped.
Yep.
I have flat feet. I started wearing hookahs over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. And when I got them, it helped a lot because my feet were starting to hurt with the flat feet and
Yep.
probably having shittier shoes, even though I was buying okay shoes.
Yep.
Then when I got the hookahs, I'm like, wow, my feet started hurting less, which was amazing.
Yep.
And problem was they were only lasting, and like they're not, I don't know what cheap, I don't know where relative.
No, Hoka's they are more expensive.
$200
as well. Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Now they're $225. They
Yeah.
went up with the new one or whatever.
Yep.
But they were wearing out pretty quickly. Like I was loving wearing them.
Yeah.
But after about maybe 4 months, I don't even know, at the back of the heel, inside the shoe, it would start to burn a hole. And like I was living in the Dutch community, just keep wearing them thin.
Yeah.
And the plastic would start poking out and it would be sharp.
Right.
And then I would try and cut it, melt it, and whatever. And I'm like, okay, like, cause I'm like, to me, shoes wear out when the soles would wear out or something.
Right.
In
Yeah.
my mind, I don't even know.
Yeah, but
So-
every shoe wear is different. So
Yeah.
that could be your pattern of wear. It's
Yeah,
in
for
the
some
heel.
reason. So like I keep buying them.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to see you finally have some water. We're talking about water. I'm like, I'm almost done my but
Yeah.
So wearing out, so I've been buying them, and like I've been thinking to myself, like I should see if like they would replace these because they're like, to me, $200 they should last.
But that could be a warranty issue. There's nothing wrong with reaching out to them. I would find running companies are actually super helpful.
So yes.
Oh, no.
Not it was.
Yeah.
So like at first I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do a warranty thing, but I'm always busy and I didn't do it. I finally tried. And I think I tried through Running Room because I buy my shoes online through Running Room. I don't know where you buy yours or what,
Or
but
if I can find them.
yeah. So Running Room, and then I went on to their warranty thing. It was like basically a broken link. And I'm like, okay. So then I went to Hookah and I think I messaged them on Instagram. And then I think on their website, they legit had like a number to text for warranty. So I texted them and like I went through a thing and they replaced the shoes.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that makes these shoes a lot more affordable
Totally.
because like it's literally happened to 4 pairs.
Yeah.
And I love them, but they're not lasting as long as I want. So I'm like, what do I do? But the warranty works. So what I'm anticipating is the next shoe I buy, the same thing will happen and I'll probably be able to get a free shoe again. But I don't know. And I don't know if it's a shoe problem, if it's a me problem, but I'm happy that they gave me a warranty anyway.
Yeah. No, they are good. My husband he got a Garmin watch and it was just dying in the middle of runs. And we had bought his watch again, used like it was a $100 watch. And so I don't even know how old it was, but he called Garmin and they tried to reset it a few times and then they just sent him a new watch.
That's amazing.
You have to send the old one back, obviously, but
That's
yeah.
fine and dandy.
No, I was going to say, so running companies are pretty cool that way.
Eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, this is where I'm like, because like I was like $200 shoes. That's a little bit expensive. But I'm like, I run so much. Obviously, tools are so super important.
Yep.
I wouldn't look back on that part. Now I'm talking to my other friend. I'm going to call you crazy like her. Crazy runner too.
Yeah.
And she's out in Halifax and runs like crazy paces and all this stuff, Boston. And I was talking to her about shoes a bit. And she was talking about some Nike pair of shoes.
I know exactly which ones you mean.
With
the carbon plate. Yeah.
400.
Yeah. And that can give you a little bit of an up on the race. Carbon plated shoes are the new thing for race day.
She calls them magic.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And supposedly they are.
$400.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this what my life's coming to?
No, that is not what your life has to come to. But it's all good.
We got to shut her down.
I've got a kid that has to get to school.
Okay. So is there anything left to touch on running stuff? So you do coaching, people can reach out to you.
I do. Yeah. I have a website, just like a
Yes.
1-page landing page,
Yeah.
which is readysetrun.ca.
Sweet.
So, and again, it's very organic. Like most of the people I coach, I know, or I've met within the running community. But yeah, that's what we do. I do it online or people come to my house to meet. So it just depends what works best. So some people will do like video chats and then other ones will meet at my house. Just depends.
I like it.
Yeah.
Before we shut her down, I normally ask people a few questions. I won't ask them all, just some fun ones off topic.
Okay.
You would never be on death row, but if you were, what would your last meal be?
My last meal.
Yeah.
Oh man.
We didn't even talk a whole ton about food stuff.
No, and I'm in such a, like, I would definitely have cheesecake.
Sweet
Cheesecake.
tooth. That's
Yeah.
sweet tooth. I can
100%. Yeah. And then I don't know. I'm so plain eating. Like I'm not fancy. Yeah. I'm
But
trying
if
to
it's
think.
I
don't know. Like just give
Sweet.
me. No, you know what? I love Mandarin buffet. So I just like a variety of things. So I'd have a buffet. There we go. That's what I do.
buffet stuff.
Yeah.
I like it. When you do have pizza, what do you like on it for toppings?
Hawaiian. All the way.
Pineapple's cool with.
Yeah.
And then ham or pepperoni for the meat?
Ham.
Ham.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like it. Favorite style of music?
I love contemporary Christian music.
I like it.
But I also really loved alternative music growing up. So it's like a mix of
Little
the
mix
two
in there.
worlds.
I like it.
It's like the hopeless and the hope.
Mix it together. I like it. This is life. This is life.
Totally.
Yeah, I got a bunch here. If you could pick anywhere to travel.
Oh, if I could, given that we have such a bucket list, but if I had to pick a place tomorrow, it would either be like Greece or Hawaii. One of the two. Nice. But I love Europe, so
same.
It's likely Greece.
Same. Okay, we're going to have to do this again another time because there's other questions on there and we didn't even cover all of that whole stuff. This was a great talk.
It was. I was very nervous to do this, so thank you.
Was it that bad?
Sure. No, it was very easy. You're
See,
right.
just a couple people shooting the breeze.
Yeah, for sure. I
like
appreciate
it.
that.
Thank you for coming out.
Yeah,
I hope we can talk more.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe.